The Michigan Wolverines take on the Penn State Nittany Lions. 12 o'clock Eastern start time on Saturday. Michigan's -1.5, totals 48. We're 7-4 with a push in our last 12 college football tier package picks on BrockPage.com. Of course, that's good for 64% during that span. We currently have over 860 members who are signed up and active on that page. And if you want to see which one of these free YouTube picks on this video that I'm actually betting on personally, there's only one way to do that, and that's to sign up for my college football tier package picks on BrockPage.com. Now, the Wolverines are amongst the best rushing teams in America. Hassan Haskins has rushed for 829 yards, along with 11 touchdowns. Meanwhile, Blake Corum's rushed for nearly 800 yards himself, along with 10 scores on the ground. Now, both backs have combined for over 1,600 rushing yards on the ground this year. Meanwhile, defensively on the other side of the ball, the Wolverines are allowing just 16 points a game. They've also got themselves a top 10 pass defense in the country. David Ojabo has 8 total sacks on the season, 4 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery for the linebacker. Meanwhile, Josh Ross leads the team in tackles with 61. They're taking on a Penn State squad who lost 3 out of their last 4 ball games. They also rank 119th in rush yards per game. The Nittany Lions are also 102nd in the nation in fourth quarter scoring at home. Now, total-wise, Penn State's last 3 straight all fell under the number, 7-2 to the under for the entire season. Meanwhile, 2 out of Michigan's last 3 fell under the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Michigan -1.5, under 48. Next matchup, Mississippi State versus Auburn, 12 o'clock Eastern start time. Auburn's -5.5, totals 51. The Tigers are 4-1 straight up at home, and they rank in the top 25 in home offensive yards from scrimmage. Tank Bigsby and Jarquez Hunter, they combined for nearly 1,300 rushing yards and 10 scores. Meanwhile, defensively, Auburn's in the top 25 in fewest home points allowed. Zacoby McClain has 71 total tackles on the season, a couple of sacks for the senior. They're taking on a Mississippi State team who lost 4 out of their last 7, and they've given little effort into establishing a proper run game. Meanwhile, defensively, the Bulldogs are 103rd in fourth quarter points allowed on the road. Now, total-wise, Mississippi State's last couple of ball games got over the number. Meanwhile, Auburn saw 3 out of their last 5 at home get over the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Auburn -5.5, over 51. Next matchup, it is going to be Oklahoma versus Baylor. And I believe that's on our big screen, no? There it is. 12 o'clock Eastern kickoff. Oklahoma's -5.5, total 62. The Sooners have failed to cover in 4 out of their last 7. Oklahoma's also played just 2 road games this year, and they failed to cover the number in both of those contests. The Sooners are 114th in pass defense. The Sooners are also 103rd in defensive takeaways. They're taking on a Baylor team who successfully covered the point spread in 6 out of their last 8. Now, the Bears are also undefeated at home. They went 5-0 against the spread in all of those home victories. The Bears are in the top 10 in the country in rush yards per game. That's what I'm trying to say. Abram Smith, he's rushed for over 1,000 yards already, along with 11 touchdowns on the ground. Smith averages over 7 yards a carry and over 117 yards a game rushing. Meanwhile, defensively on the other side of the ball, Baylor allows just 20 points a game, and they're in the top 20 in fewest second quarter points allowed. Now, 6 out of Baylor's last 8 ball games got over the line, 4-1 at the over on their home field. Meanwhile, the Sooners are 4-1 at the over in their last 5 themselves. I'm going to lean toward Baylor, +5.5, over 62. Next matchup, it is going to be Georgia versus Tennessee, 3:30 p.m. East. Georgia's -20, totals 56. The Georgia Bulldogs have the best defense in the country. They're giving up just 6 points a game. They're holding their opponents to just 232 total yards of offense per contest. Channing Tindall has 45 tackles on the year. Nakobe Dean with 38 tackles and a pick six. The Bulldogs currently lead the country in fewest second quarter points allowed. They're taking on a Tennessee squad who lost 2 out of their last 3 themselves, and they rank 101st in offensive turnovers. The Vols have also struggled to pass the football at home. Meanwhile, defensively, Tennessee's 109th in pass defense, and they're allowing over 28 points a game. Now, total-wise, 3 out of Georgia's last 4 away from their home field fell under the number. The Bulldogs are officially 67% to the under for the entire season. I'm going to lean toward Georgia minus 20, under 56. Next contest, Ohio State, Purdue, 3:30 p.m. Eastern start time. Ohio State's minus 21, total 63.5. Now, the Buckeyes have struggled somewhat defending the pass this year. They're 94th in the country in pass defense. They also failed to cover the point spread in their last 2 straight, just 2-3 against the spread at the Horseshoe. They're taking on a Purdue team who certainly likes to air it out. Aaron O'Connell's thrown for nearly 2,100 yards already. Meanwhile, wide receiver David Bell has over 1,000 yards receiving already, along with 5 scores. Now, Bell's averaging over 15.5 yards per reception and also 111 yards a game receiving. The Boilermakers have won 3 out of their last 4 contests, with marquee wins over Iowa and Michigan State. Those teams were in the top 5 when Purdue beat them. I'll tell you what, Purdue, despite their record, they could potentially beat any team in the country. They go toe-to-toe in these matchups. I'm not saying they would 100%. You know, like if they played Alabama or Georgia, right? Like if they played each team 10 times, there's a good possibility they'd get their fair share of wins. That's what I'm trying to say. But anyway, the Boilermakers, once again, they've won 3 out of their last 4. Big victories over Iowa and Michigan State. And typically I'd say that teams who are going up against Ohio State just aren't built for a track meet. Well, Purdue is. Purdue is built for a track meet. They can beat any team on any given day. Now, total-wise, 2 out of the Boilermakers' last 3 ball games got over the line. And as I say that, they can get blown out by any team on any given day as well. They're kind of like the Tennessee Titans a little bit. But anyway, Ohio State, they saw 4 out of their last 7 get over the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Purdue plus 21 over 63.5. Next matchup, Texas A&M versus Ole Miss, 7 o'clock East. A&M's minus 3, totals 57. But as good as the Aggies are defensively, you got to be built for a track meet when you play Ole Miss. And I'm just not sure they can keep up. The Aggies are throwing for under 210 yards a game, and they're 118th in fourth quarter scoring on the road. They're taking on an Ole Miss team who won 4 out of their last 5. They find themselves undefeated at home. The Rebels are 5-0 straight up in the friendly confines, 4-1 against the spread in those 5 home victories. The Rebels are rushing for over 235 yards a game on the ground. They're also in the top 5 in total yards per game. Matt Corral has thrown for over 2,500 yards along with just 2 interceptions. Corral has also rushed for over 500 yards and scored 10 times on the ground. The Rebels are in the top 5 in the country in second quarter scoring. Now, total-wise, Ole Miss saw their last 4 straight fall under the numbers, 67% to the under for the entire year. Meanwhile, Texas A&M is 6-3 to the under for the entire season themselves. I'm going to lean toward Ole Miss plus 3, under 57. Next contest, it is going to be NC State versus Wake Forest. Did I pass it? Or is it not on the screen? Not on our big screen, but anyway, NC State versus Wake Forest, 7:30 p.m. East. Wake Forest is minus 2, total 66.5. Now, the deflated Demon Deacons, they blew a massive lead against UNC last week. They lost 58-55. They also failed to cover in 3 out of their last 5. It was really only a matter of time until Wake Forest's defense failed them, and they certainly failed them in a very big spot this past week. Once again, The Deacs have failed to cover in 3 out of their last 5. They're officially just 2-3 against the spread on their home field as well. The Deacs allowed over 216 rushing yards per contest, and they rank 105th in the nation in yards allowed per game. Wake Forest is 121st in fourth quarter points allowed. They're taking on a really good NC State team who won their last 2 straight, 6-1 straight up in their last 7. Now, the Wolfpack's got one of the best defenses in the country. They allow only 16 points a game, and they're in the top 10 in fewest rush yards allowed per contest. Drake Thomas has 74 tackles on the season, 4 sacks and a couple of interceptions for the linebacker. Meanwhile, Tanner Engel has 60 tackles on the year himself, 4 PBUs and a pick 6, not a pick 6, but an interception for the safety. NC State's in the top 3 in fewest second quarter points allowed. When it comes to the total in this one, 3 out of NC State's last 4 road games fell under the line. Wake Forest, believe it or not, 4-1 to the other. 4-1 to the under on their home field. Give me NC State +2, under 66.5. Next game, Notre Dame, Virginia, 7:30 Eastern kickoff. Notre Dame's -6, total 64. And as good as the Irish have been, they've done a really lackluster job running the football. They're 98th in the country in rush yards per game. They're also 120th in first quarter scoring. They're taking on a Virginia team who does nothing but score points themselves. First in the NCAA in total yards per contest. Top 3 in pass yards per game. Of course, Brennan Armstrong, he's thrown for over 3,500 yards, along with 27 touchdowns. Now, his favorite target's been Dontavion Wicks, who's got 42 grabs for 972 and 9 scores. Wicks is averaging over 23 yards a catch and 108 yards a game receiving. Virginia scored 30 points or more in 8 out of their 9 ball games this year. Virginia's last 2 straight got over the line. Notre Dame is 3-0 to the over away from home. I'm going to lean toward Virginia +6, over 64. With that, guys, we've got a lot of games to cover. I got to hop into my quick pick recap, brought to you by my website at brockpage.com, where we are 7-4 with a push in our last 12 college football tier package picks. I like Army -54.5 over 61. Memphis -5 over 59. Give me Houston -24.5 over 53. UMASS +1 under 59 and a hook. Michigan -1.5 under 48. Auburn -5.5 over 51. New Mexico State +51.5 under 67. Northwestern +24.5 under 41. Baylor Bears +5.5 over 62. Rutgers +7 under 42.5. Give me the Florida Gators -31 under 70. Syracuse +3 under 55.5. SMU Mustangs -7 over 61.5. UConn -41 under 51 and a hook. Kansas State -6 under 47. Coastal Carolina -10.5 over 52. Utah -24 under 54. Western Kentucky -18.5 over 61. Appalachian State -22.5 over 60. Appalachian State -22.5 over 52. Texas State -2 under 54 and a hook. Louisiana Tech -7 over 57. Duke +11.5 under 51. Florida Atlantic -6.5 under 48 and a hook. Middle Tennessee State -10 over 55. Georgia Bulldogs -20 under 56. Texas Tech +10.5 over 58. Troy +7 under 48. Florida State +3 under 61. Iowa Hawkeyes -4.5 over 37. Purdue +21 over 63.5. UTSA, Texas San Antonio, the Roadrunners -33 over 54.5. UAB +4.5 under 56. Hawaii -3 under 56. Maryland +12 under 61.5. South Carolina -1 under 55. Tulsa -3, under 55.5. UTEP -1, under 55 points. Arkansas State +3, over 66.5. Stanford +12.5, under 56. Air Force -2.5, over 45. Washington +5.5, under 46. Kentucky -21, over 52.5. Fresno State -24.5, under 51. Ole Miss +3, under 57. LSU +3, over 59. Texas Longhorns -31, over 62. NC State +2, under 66.5. Virginia Cavaliers +6, over 64. TCU +12, over 54.5. UCLA -17.5, under 57. San Diego State -3, under 45.5. Utah State +4.5, under 57 and a hook. And before I give you my next and final free pick for the video, one final reminder that we are 7-4 with a push in our last 12 college football tier package picks on BrockPage.com. And that's good for 64% in that particular span. I'm going to lead toward Washington State +14 and the over 57.5. And with that, guys, I'm going to jump into my shout out of the day. And that's going to go to Los Meres Barzas Negras Oroso, who said the other day, thanks, Brock. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on BrockPage.com. If you guys end up getting a membership here today on that website, just keep in mind you're going to get billed the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. So if you do end up getting a membership here today on BrockPage.com, you are going to get access to that content all the way through the end of November. I always tell folks in every single video, the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, guys, happy Friday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at BrockPage.com.